name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Sometimes we learn the most extraordinary things while sitting around a kitchen table. Many years ago, I was sitting at a farm table surrounded by a few Episcopal nuns of the Order of the Community of the Holy Spirit. One of them, Sister Catherine Grace, was my spiritual director, and I had come to their convent for a few days' retreat while in seminary. I had visited her at their mother house in Manhattan, but I was wanting a different experience to get out of the city for a few days of quiet. Well, as soon as I arrived at their farm, I realized everything was atypical. Whereas the sisters rose before daybreak for their personal prayers at various times, the daily office, morning prayer and evening prayer, was at a different time each week, dependent upon the times of the sunrise and the sunset. The sisters wore overalls and operated small bulldozers and heavy garden rototillers. They came in for meals and prayers with soil under their fingernails and mud on their boots. There was never a time when they weren't tilling the soil or planting seeds grown in their greenhouse or watering or weeding or harvesting, canning, or freezing the vegetables. Their work, their prayer, and action was rooted in the soil. And I wondered why. The altar in their outside chapel was adorned with a cross and candles and wildflowers picked from their meadow, as one might expect. But there was also an artist rendering of the earth in an icon, which poignantly and immediately drew your heart into a deeper awareness of the holy. Every part of their life, worship, prayer, study, service, and community life, was oriented toward their connection with creation, which continually reoriented them toward God. Their goal was to live off the land, to minimize their carbon footprint, and find a way to be in a balanced relationship with the earth. They heard a call to heal the soil, to live sustainably, and to worship on their plot of land, and live in the appreciation of the wonder of creation. It was as if the words of God as offered in the first creation story, "and it was good," was their mantra. The earth, its spirituality, its sustainability was a gift from God, and their relationship to this gift became the focus of their work and their worship and life in community. So as we sat around the kitchen table that evening, I asked about the deliberate choice they made to care for creation. And Sister Catherine Grace said to me, "The earth is God's primary revelation. If we want to be in right relationship with God, then we must be in right relationship with the earth." Well, her statement was revelatory to me. I'd often heard or assumed that we care about our environment through our efforts of cleaning up toxic waste or reducing our carbon emissions and recycling, because if we don't, humankind will not exist. I never realized how self-centered this statement was, focused on only one part of God's creation, us. And to this religious order, being in right relationship meant a give and take with the earth, finding that balance between receiving the abundance freely offered to us from God's revelation, our earth, and then offering the abundance and the care back, or paying it forward, that goodness, to God's people. It was as if the sisters had understood God's tagline in the first creation story, "and it is good," as a fundamental invitation for us to see the goodness, the godness in all parts of creation, not just humankind. And then it was as though they took their understanding a step further by hearing in the second creation story, when God gathered the dust or the dirt or Adam from creation and breathed into the nostrils of the human, that God set forth a model for our relationship with God and with God's creation. We were to become what God intended, creatures who understood this inherent connection with the earth and the source which created the earth, and who could initiate a relationship with God, with creation, with others, that was wholly true and holy in nature. Somehow it seemed as though the sisters understood that they were called to be in relationship with the gift, living openly what many say on Sunday morning when the offering plates are brought forward to the altar. All things come from thee, O Lord, and from thine own have I given thee. Each day they breathed in, they drew into the core of their very being the gifts that had been so freely offered by God. The sun and the rain and the ruby red ripened on the vine tomatoes, and the fresh farm eggs from their laying hens, and the sweet honey offered from their bee colony, and the love that was present in their community. And then they breathed it out. They breathed the gifts of God to God's people, offering back to God and all that God had produced, by the nourishment they each received from the food, by their replenishing of the soil, and by their offering of the produce to the food pantry in the town. They didn't give their leftovers. They gave their first fruits to feed others from the gifts graciously given to them by God. They breathed in God's abundant gifts and exhaled God's goodness to others. All was in balance. The intake of God's goodness and the output of God's love, made real in their care of creation and of others. The rich man in our parable today did not know how to balance his breathing in and his breathing out. He was willing to breathe in the goodness of God, the abundance that the land had produced, but because he was not in relationship with the gift, the God whose primary revelation was the earth, which had produced his excess crops, his only desire was to contain the abundance the land produced. He wanted to build new storage barns to claim that the abundance belonged to him, rather than breathing out any of the goodness of God by offering those first fruits to his laborers or his neighbors, the widows or orphans, or the aliens and strangers who had come within his community for care, as God would have desired. Each of these actions would have been an honor to the loving God who graced him with a surplus. But the rich man neither knew or had a relationship with God, and as such, he only drew in the goodness of God without ever exhaling the goodness back to the land or to others. And like a balloon that bursts under pressure, the rich man explodes, spewing greed, not goodness, into the world. God released his breath by his death, for it was apparent he was not truly living. To be full of the goodness life offers us, without knowing the source or finding the meaning in the abundance, without a grateful heart for the gifts so freely offered to us, the excess is often manifested in greed. Greed is the endless search for more that always leaves you wanting. You are never filled. The rich man stockpiled the abundance of crops, but greed shows up in many other ways. Whenever enough is never enough. When the excess is hoarded, not shared. When I, me, or mine matter more than anyone else. Greed can be a desire to hoard money, or stockpile possessions, or collect compliments, or acquire people's admiration, or search for ever new relationships, or possess power and dominate love. Greed contains a fierce energy, and we can find it ever so easy to justify our actions and our state of heart. We can always believe that we deserve it, or that we have been the ones who created it. And yet being rich toward God, being in relationship with the gift or the giver of the gift, must always take precedence over our own ego. For being in relationship with God is only that which will give us abundant life, not storehouses of meaningless excess. To be rich toward God is to be in balance, where our breathing in of God's goodness includes our tending to the relationship with God, and our breathing out includes an exhale into our world of truth and love and righteousness. Our gospel invitation this morning calls us to attend to our breathing, to bring into the core the gift of God's goodness, and then exhale love. As when you come forward this morning to receive the gifts of God for the people of God, this sacred meal of bread and wine, breathe in God's goodness of the knowledge that you now have all that you need. You have enough. You are enough. As you reach out for that bread and the wine, know that you are filled with what deeply nourishes you. And it is more than you will ever need. Then follow that natural instinct and just give it away. Be generous. Think of other people before yourself and trust in the knowledge that God has already given you all that you need and more. The sisters of the community of Holy Spirit gave it away by caring for the earth and by caring for others around them. They breathed in God and breathed out love and respect and caring for that which gave them these gifts. Perhaps exhaling the abundance God has produced for you will be in your generous giving to our parish's mission and ministry through a one-time gift or increased annual offering. Or maybe it will be in joining a community meal team so you can share your abundance with those in need. Or maybe it will be in sharing the good news of Christ in your life with others who are secretly yearning to be connected to a faith community. Or maybe your exhale will involve listening more deeply to others. Or gathering friends over a meal where meaningful conversation can occur. Or maybe it's joining us in contemplative prayer and making space for more silence in your life so you can actually listen to God and respond more closely. Or your exhale may involve studying and learning more about our scriptures, or the way of love spiritual practices, or joining a book study group. There are so many ways to exhale God's love into the world that will make a difference in your life and the lives of others. We just need to learn how to balance the inhale and the exhale, because the world really needs our care. Today, as we designate this Sunday as the Episcopal Home Mission Sunday, we are called to exhale our love and our care to our neighbors, the residents of the Episcopal Home. This is this amazing personal care home that is next to our church and set deep within the heart of this parish. As we breathe in God's love, we can share it with our friends and our neighbors and our members of our parish who live at the Episcopal Home. We can contribute money to the Benevolent Care Fund, which provides support for residents in need. Or we can come to the Wednesday healing service and lay our hands on people and pray with them. Or we can volunteer in so many ways. But most of all, what we're called to do is share our hearts with them. For then this amazing and most beautiful thing will happen, I promise you, that their stories and their questions and their goodness and their love will come back to us. And then through them, we are going to see the glory and the gift of God. When we live a life in balance with God, when we breathe in the goodness and gift of God, and then we breathe out God's love and truth and righteousness, our lives will be happy, holy, joyful. And it will also be good for the rest of humanity and for God's primary revelation, which is our earth. Amen.